welcome to another episode of Jiujiteiras. I'm Babs.
I'm Katie.
And we are here in the studio and doing our first very Zoom episode. We have a lovely guest, Sarah Tonin from Dominion, Nova Scotia. She's stomping ground is Sprawl and Brawl, and is really kicking up the scene in the MMA world, capturing a lot of accolades. So welcome, Sarah.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We're very happy to have you here today, and just wanted to, I suppose another thing is you're kind of the mastermind behind the Women That Fight community organization. So you've got a lot of stuff between kickboxing and jiu-jitsu. And so tell us about yourself, expand on that.
So I am a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. So I've been training for probably about 9 years. So I started training out in BC and then moved out to Cape Breton probably 3.5 years ago now. We've been training at Sprawl Brawl. So that's like an MMA based gym. So I've been moving more and more towards no-gi and MMA as I progress through my belts. That's been that. And then in the last year, I did start a kickboxing program, partially to just start a kickboxing program and start coaching more, but also to start bringing more women into the sport up here. There's not a lot of women that train in Cape Breton. And I know that I got into jiu-jitsu from the kickboxing route. I know a lot of girls kind of take that pathway and the kickboxing jiu-jitsu route into martial arts. So that's been going good. We've been doing that since about September. And I think 2 Septembers ago now, or was it last September? I guess it was last year. Last summer, I started taking over the Women That Fight group from Courtney Pratt. So that was Courtney Pratt's brainchild. She started it, I think, about 10 years ago. And she started about 10 years ago. And then, it just fell into my lap. She was wanting to retire. And then, so we've done I think 1, 2, 3, 4 events now. So that's been a super fun group. It's all over Atlantic Canada. So that's kind of, we're still kind of, I think, figuring out what we want to do as a group. 'Cause I feel like that kind of group is more a member owned group. I don't really consider it to be my group or my anything like that. I think that sometimes you just need a leader body just to kind of have a focal point for action to kind of flow through. So I don't necessarily consider me to be in charge or anything. I just kind of am the facilitator, just kind of helping things happen more. So I'm hoping to do some more things with that as well. Maybe one of my ideas has been to start getting some rash guards and stuff made, so we can start getting a bit of money brought in, so that we could have some good female athletes brought in to do free seminars for our members and stuff like that. So that's kind of my sport side of things. And then for competing, I've always been active in competing in jiu-jitsu since a white belt. I've always just competed almost every month, every other month. Have always enjoyed that side of things. Then as I kind of started into purple belt and on, I started doing a bit more international competitions and traveling. So I've had a bit more success with that lately. I haven't competed in 2 months, so I kind of feel like a has-been right now, because I don't usually have and I don't have anything on the horizon for a couple months. So, that's okay. And then, so I'm just finishing up my schooling right now, because I'm doing my LPN to RN schooling. So that's been taking up a lot of my time. So the last little chunk of time has been very, very busy for me, but the schooling's coming to a close, and so then I can kind of focus more on my coaching, because I coach jiu-jitsu and kickboxing at the gym. So get back to more coaching and training and stuff like that. So it's been a crazy year of opportunities, but I kind of feel like everything's starting to slow down a bit, so I can start kind of focusing back more on competing professionally.
That's awesome. Yeah, all of that sounds super busy. And one of the big things we talk about is the balancing, the juggling of all of the things, right? You have your career goals, family obligations, and then your personal goals. And so it is a lot. So don't get down on the 2-month break. You're still you're still strong. You're not a has-been, right? It's just you have to shift your focus from time to time, right? So, which is awesome.
And it was mostly actually my knee injury that caused that, because I hurt my knee in February, and I had a whole bunch of tournaments lined up after that. So I just kind of kept competing, and making it worse. So then finally after that last kumite, I just like took a solid, like really step back on my training and started coming back slowly. Like I just kept kind of hurting myself, taking a week off, and then coming back at 100%, like training at 100%, re-hurting myself. So this, I'm at like, I think week 4 right now of just coming back and just training lightly. If it starts to hurt, that's the end of the training session. Like, and you guys would be shocked to find out that that actually is very effective in rehabbing an injury.
When you actually give your body a break.
Yeah, it's been horrifying to find out because now that means I'm gonna have to take, like, I have good reason to take time off when I get hurt now. So,
It's hard
but
to
yeah,
do
it's
though,
been,
eh?
yeah, especially like the knee injury was a weird one. It wasn't like my, I still am waiting for my MRI, but my physiotherapist said that he thought it was like a meniscus injury. So it wasn't um like for example, like holding a back control would hurt it, or like if somebody was passing my butterfly guard and really like smash my butterfly guard to my heel to my butt, that would hurt it. Like I could get in leg lock battles, I could, all the things that you usually protect your knees from when you're have a knee injury were fine for me, but like, mount was really painful for me, knee on belly was really painful, like back control, close guard, like all the, so those, it was just kind of a weird. So now that I'm back, I've been playing a lot of bottom positions, just kind of just pretty much seeing how deep I can get in submissions and get out and stuff. So that's not usually something I do when I train, even though I know you're supposed to. So it's been kind of once again nice to kind of learn these different skills. One of my teammates, Justin, he had hurt his knee really badly probably about 2 years ago now. I think he did a year of injury. Now he's back pretty much fully, and that's what he just always was sympathized, and he's just like, I know it sucks, man, but like you're gonna come back as such a better athlete. Like I know you don't want to believe me, but like you are. So I hate to say he's right.
Those kind of injuries can be really frustrating, but it is interesting how some injuries will force you to play a different type of game, and it just strengthens
Yeah,
those areas that you don't normally work. So yeah, I'm excited
100%.
to
Yeah,
see
because
what you're doing with it.
yeah, like so I've been playing a lot of bottom, like bottom butterfly guards and stuff like that. Like it's mostly I only have like my one good hook right now, but I'm getting pretty. I think I'm probably at like 80-90% now. Like I'm pretty good now. Um, so it's like I wish I would have maybe started doing that in February when I got hurt, but whatever, you can't go back. So yeah, it's been nice getting to reframe, and especially now that like as you get older and you start competing a lot and you're coaching, you have to be really smart about how you train. You can't, I think it's the normal progression when you start training jiu-jitsu, all your training sessions are usually really hard rolls. You don't have a lot of skills necessarily to pick apart because you're so new to them all. So as I've tried to pick, higher level belts and competitors' brains, and the common thing you hear is that there's really only like 1 or 2 hard days of training every week, like competition round training I'm talking about, and the rest are usually, positional sparring, just like digging down and picking apart stuff, trying new positions and stuff like that. So I'm somebody who just like loves to roll hard, like not even just for training or getting better purposes. That's just how I deal with a lot of my life stressors, is just by going in and just doing hard rounds. So it's been a bit of a learning curve for me, kind of approaching my training in these different ways. And even the way I coach now has changed because of that. I don't just do like technique and rounds anymore. I do a lot of positional sparring, or the like ecological approach, like they talk about, like doing rounds where you were just playing games, like um, like trying to pass guards without your hands, like just playing different kind of games where you're working on very, very specific skills in a, like you're still doing live rounds, but you're working on one specific skill instead of the whole, spectrum of skills that come up in a round of jiu-jitsu. So
Nice.
That's cool.
I've been finding it pretty, yeah, it's been nice to kind of, it's always fun when you get to like find new ways to learn in jiu-jitsu, because when you've been doing it for like almost a decade, sometimes some things can get a little dull. So it's nice to kind of spice it up.
That's awesome.
Nice.
How are you finding your class with the ecological training, since you've kind of shifted? How are you finding that for them?
I think pretty good. Like we have a really good group of like students. Like I've trained at a lot of different gyms, even just from moving around and just from traveling, and we don't have a lot of like hobbyists at our gym. We don't have a lot, like we have a few, and there's no right, like there's no better or worse people, but like most people at our gym are like competitors and are very, very like fixated on improving, you know what I mean? Like they're not really there for fun. We're like, of course we have fun as a byproduct, but like we're lucky at our gym that we're a very hungry gym. So everybody's usually coming trying to get better as fast as possible. So they're usually pretty game for whatever we throw at them. And right now we have kind of like an interesting gym setup too. We have like a not-for-profit gym, so we don't really have like one person on top just collecting dues and making money. Like we kind of have a community-based approach to our gym. So we have like 5 or 6, like Wayne owns a gym, of course, and is the owner. But we have like 5 or 6 coaches who all kind of contribute. And so you get to see a whole bunch of different teaching styles, which is nice too. So you're not dependent on one person's philosophy for how they think training is best done. So it's cool to kind of get to dip your hand in so many different pots of people's experience and skills.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good.
I like that. It kind of gets away from the cult mentality too. There's a gentleman I was speaking with the other day about how the more diverse your training is and the different people that you're learning from, you kind of collect what you like of their knowledge and their skill set and kind of build your own game.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, and everybody has a different, like we just actually, one of our summer's program, the summer kids program just ended. So yesterday or Thursday, so 2 days ago was the first day that we switched for the adult jiu-jitsu class. So we had a brand new coach in who I'd never, like one of our students is coaching. He's like Brett McLanders. He's a great coach. But so that was my first time ever learning from him. And he's like a very successful competitor. And it's just so interesting to like just kind of see inside their toolbox, you know, you're just kind of like, oh, what you got in there? And then he's showing stuff. And a lot of the times too, especially I find as you progress to the higher belts, you're not even, sometimes you're picking up moves in general, but sometimes you're just even like picking up details on their moves that you can apply to your moves, you know, like he was showing some high mount stuff. I have a really good high mount game that I'm surprised, like proud of. And, you know, just a couple things that he did, I was just like, oh, like, okay. Like just, you know, a certain little leg movement that he does, you're just kind of just picking apart those little tiny details. Right. Like, so it's cool getting to see from not only everybody's different like skill sets, because everybody has different styles and games, but then also their teaching approach. So you kind of get to like, it will have like I was saying, like, so his warm-ups are more the you know, doing like the shrimps and rolls, which I think are very important to do at some point. You can't cut those all together from a gym program, right? Those are really important for fundamental movements for everybody, but especially people who are newer to the sport. And then, you know, so I taught yesterday in my warm up was, you know, I think we did a round of passing open guard. Like the person on the bottom had to keep an open guard with their feet between them. The person on top was just trying to get to north south. Those were the only 2 movements allowed. Then the next one was, I think, you're starting in like a butterfly guard body lock, and the only 2 movements allowed are passing or sweeping. Like the next one was close guard, and it's only passing or and the like the person on the bottom was only supposed to keep their posture bent. Person on top is trying to break the guard. So you're just like working on those very specific skill sets instead of that like the branching off that you can get in all these different ways. So like I think it's cool how we just have such a different approach.
It's interesting too when you factor in their teaching style, what their game, like specific game is, but also the different body sizes and shapes too. Like that makes a big difference in people's
absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're as a smaller person always learning from a larger person who relies more on their size to get by and be good at jiu-jitsu, then it's somewhat of a, you know, so it's nice to have different people. And
yes.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Like, and even like I'm obviously on the smaller side of things because we actually have quite a large. We have a big heavyweight population at my gym, but we also have like a good featherweight population at my gym, like around my size too. So it's nice to kind of get both sides, because I have had, like, as a white belt, my coach was quite a large man, and I'll never forget like asking him a question about a move I was getting stuck in from half guard, and he's like, oh yeah, you just like frame and sit up with him on top of you. And then like I try it once and I was just like, yeah, that's not going to be something that works for me, you know. Like, so body shapes definitely have a big thing to do with it.
I think the smaller you get, the more technical you have to be. Like, you're kind of, not to say that larger opponents aren't technical, I'm not saying that, but I think the smaller you are, you rely a lot on technical ability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a cool gym too, because we've all came from, like, some of those guys are like, born and raised from that gym, but like me and Jesse have came from out west. Like we have people from different gyms who come in as well. So and everybody really like kind of pursues their own knowledge outside of the gym and is like independent learners and stuff. So I just feel like we like the coach Wayne, he's always combing through the Danaher like instructionals and then teaching that stuff. So like we just get so many paths of knowledge in. So yeah, it's and like I know you asked me earlier about how I'm finding the ecological approach with the students, but it's something that you can't really tell right away, right? Like you like and there's so many factors in, like, even because maybe competition or rolling might be like the marker of success, but you guys both know from rolling that like a bad day, a bad diet, bad hydration, you know what I mean? Those things can affect it. So it's just something we're just gonna keep watching some of the newer people, but um and in general, I just find that we were just talking about this last night, that like jiu-jitsu is just accelerating so rapidly that like people are like, something like, say, like butterfly guard or leg locks. That was something that was more meant for advanced people when I started jiu-jitsu. That wasn't something that you really adapted as a white belt or even as a blue belt, really. And now these are all things that are just taught from the beginning. They're fundamentals now, and people who have been training for like 2 years are now kind of like at like no, they might not be like as like successful competitively, but they have the same kind of skill knowledge base, a similar one to me that took me like 10 years to develop. Or you'll like show somebody a skill that took you like 8 years to craft and you learned it all on your own, and they learn it in 1 minute and they're like, okay, what's next? You're like, oh,
You're like, keep going.
that's it. Yeah. So it is cool. It is cool to see, though. We're kind of like at the watching like the rebirth of the sport right now, and I think it's pretty interesting.
That progression it does seem to be going a lot faster than it used to. It's just because of the amount of knowledge that's out there, I suppose. And it's interesting that you mentioned the Danaher videos, but it's cool to have access to those online tutorials and different things like that. The information's all out there. We just got to study and put the time in.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, like the internet definitely has helped with that, and traveling and I like think too, because before cross training was kind of more like frowned upon, like um and I think it kind of makes sense if you think about it, that before the internet was so like pervasive with all the techniques, every school's techniques were kind of their trademark, right? So like when you cross over to different schools, you might be seeing techniques or skills that you wouldn't see anywhere else. So it would make sense that they would kind of safeguard that. But now with how readily available all the information is, you're not usually, you might see a good coach who's able to integrate things into your game faster, but you're not going to usually see skills or techniques at a gym that you can't find somewhere else.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. And you're at a good club when they're promoting the movement of going around to other places and having people come into the club and just like, right, to just promote all that knowledge.
I think it shows a bit of an insecurity too now, that like if you have a gym that's like, don't go anywhere else, it's like, why? Like we're all doing the same thing. It's like basketball. It's like you wouldn't tell a player not to play basketball with someone else. Like, why are we not allowed to train? Like, kind of weird.
Just the old school way of thinking, because I don't think you'd ever see a new gym kind of start like that. And because like that was like my coach was like, brought up in like the old way of jiu-jitsu, and so I know even when I first started with him, he was never against cross training, but he was always very protective of like the work and skills he was putting into his students. You know what I mean? Like, but even him would still encourage, like, be happy when other guests came or stuff like that. But yeah, I know what you mean, though. The gyms that like some gyms will have rules that like if you cross train, you're kicked out and stuff, and it's just like, okay, then I'm kicked out, I guess. Like,
this feels a little culty.
I think I'm an adult. Like,
and well, when I was traveling too, that it was weird because you'd kind of get into that with some gyms, like, and I could kind of see where some of them are coming from, where it's like, because you'd go to a lot of these tourist places, and in the States that everything's just so much more busier and dense and everything, and so sometimes they would have like gyms wouldn't let drop-ins, like you weren't allowed to drop in at some gyms, and like there would just be different rules, like you had to have a member, like had to have an ID from that area to train, you had to have a month, like just different things, right? Like and I have a feeling that those were things probably happened to create those rules. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there, even when I trained that week at B team, there were more drop-ins at every class than there were members. Like you'd probably have 15 members and then 20, 25 visitors. Like it was, the difference was like quite stark. And I just remember almost being sympathetic from him, like, man, like that must suck. Like, you know, just every day, just having this fresh new wave of faces, and the guys there are amazing. Like all the B team guys that you see on TV competing are the same guys, like Nikki Ryan, like those are all the guys that are teaching the classes, right? Like, and they're going around helping everybody troubleshooting as you're working through it. And I'm like, that must just get annoying sometimes, having to just go teach 20 new people your techniques every day that you don't know, you're never going to see again. You don't really get to like reap the benefits of their successes, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
You don't get to see their progress.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
Yeah. I think
But
too.
they were
I think
super cool about it though.
yeah. I mean, there is a loyalty with your team and the people that you train with consistently. And I think too, maybe part of it could be that, you know, outside people come in, or you haven't built up that trust to know whether or not that person is going to maybe injure you in training or something like that. But I do think it's important to be diverse in your training and learn different skills from other people. And it just makes you a lot more, you know, a broader sense of what you have in your toolbox, I guess.
It's always nice getting, like, as a competitor, I think it is nice getting to roll with all those new bodies. Like they're also super, like the same thing with the B team. They're super good about rolling with everybody. Like you can just go up and ask them to roll. And they do all, for at least the classes that I was there for, they did all 10-minute rounds every day. Everything was just 10-minute rounds.
Wow.
And I rolled on my last day, and I was just kind of like a little shy about like my partner Jesse wasn't shy about anybody. Every day he would just march up to like Ethan or Damien or like, you know, any of them and just go roll with them and stuff. And then finally on the last day, I was just like, okay, like if I don't do it today, I'm never gonna do it. And I just like marched up to Nikki Rod. I was like, will you roll with me? He's just like, sure. Like, and then yeah, then I remember we rolled for the whole time, and I was doing pretty good. He was really trying to like leg lock me, which I was doing pretty good at. And then you could tell there's like about a minute left, and he was just like, F this, grab my back, and then just like did the face choke. And I was just like, all right, that's a tap. But like it was interesting though, because like I never went to New Wave itself, but the Henzo Gracie Austin John Danaher coaches at. So we did go to a class there, and it was interesting to see the difference because like, so the class is absolutely packed. You have to show up super, super early just to see if there's room for you. Because the same thing, like because there's so many drop-ins, they only allow like maybe like 5 drop-ins, and that's if the regular members don't take those spots, et cetera, et cetera. And so we were there super early. Class was packed. There must have been like 70 people on the mat, 60 people on the mats. John Danaher shows up like super late. He's like 20, 30 minutes late. And then, and none of this is meant as a negative for him. I'm just saying that like the comparisons of the two, and he teaches technique, and you know his students, like, you know, I think the day that we were there, like Big Dan and stuff are there, like they're sitting right in front of him, and he teaches, and then he just sits down with his students while everybody like goes to the technique. So you don't actually get any access to him. Like
Okay.
he's not actually going to come see if you're doing it right. You don't get to ask a question. Like, you know, you don't actually get any access to him. And that was just something interesting I kind of picked up with traveling to so many gyms, small gyms, big gyms, is that like you kind of, especially as somebody who like competes and doesn't ever have women to train with, and you know, those kind of things, you kind of wonder if you're like missing out on opportunities about where you train. But then it's just interesting because then you go to these big gyms that you think are the answer, and then you're like, oh, you don't actually get like access to these people or this. And then if you some of these smaller gyms that we would stop in, you'd have like a lot of the wrestling like stuff that I use in my wrestling to this day. Like this guy that I was just rolling with, we were doing wrestling, and he was just like, oh, why do you do that when you wrestle? And then it just turned into a whole 2 hours of him just picking this apart with me, being like, oh, this works way better, this is what you should do. And so it's like it's just interesting to see that I just really came out with like no clear answers of what makes the best gym, you know. And I feel like it's the community and the students and like those bonds you make give you more than necessarily a big name or a big coach, because you might have the best coach in the world, but like, do you have teammates who are going to come out train with you at 6 a.m. because you have a tournament coming up before class, you know, like, yeah. So that was just kind of something interesting I found on that road trip I did around the States.
Very cool.
That's wild. That's awesome though. I mean, great experience.
It was, yeah, a lot of fun. I'm already like we got to miss winter too. So I'm already like this last winter I was just like, this sucks. I'd way rather be on the road training. Like but and it was just interesting too, because I one of the motivators for going out was to go get lots of competition experience, but it was the same kind of thing everywhere. There like just not a lot of girls at tournaments. You had to go to those big name tournaments to get big brackets. So yeah, it was just kind of interesting to see things. I thought I was going out to find all these different environments, and it was just kind of interesting to see that everything's just kind of the same everywhere. Like it's just the same pros, the same cons, just in different ways.
It's interesting. So that really spurred you on with the need for expanding women that fight and just changing some things and just getting more women into the sport, right?
And yeah, and that like, and I started, and that was after like when I came back is when I kind of started coaching and started the women that fight role and started the kickboxing because yeah, it just kind of made me realize that like you just kind of have to make the community you're looking for. You can't always just go find it. Like, so that's just it kind of inspired me just to be a bit more active. Like we just started working more on creating a schedule that was because at the time like we all are just like fighters. So a lot of our schedule would be a little bit more loose back like before, where we just kind of come in and just depending on whose fight was coming up, what rule set, we would just kind of it would just be a little bit more like improv.
Right.
So now and then we just kind of created the schedule more with the thought of what would a successful fighter's training schedule look like, you know, and kind of take that route with like the combination of wrestling classes, sparring classes, MMA, boxing, like, you know, beginners, just kind of create it like that. We've had a lot of good success. Our members have increased a lot. Yeah, we have definitely a pretty good crew at our gym.
Um, with your like when you, how you said that when you were training across the board traveling, you noticed the same, you know, the gyms kind of like the settings, like what you were expecting with the women. Like, how did you find the successes in trying to grow like the women's like presence at, like in your community?
So far it's been pretty good. Like the the I'd say we probably have about like 8 regular members for the kickboxing class. Like you know, there's more that come and go, but we have like 8 core girls that are super regular. So now they've pretty much all crossed over to the co-ed striking program at this point, I think. Like most of them have at least. Um, so and that's been great. And like actually at the last striking class that we went to, the last co-ed striking class, it was all girls and then one guy. And like it was a male teacher plus one male student, and all the rest were the girls from the kickboxing class. So that's cool. And then a couple of them have been trying out the jiu-jitsu and stuff, and they'll drop into the classes and um it's we keep trying to switch the focus to being as beginner friendly as possible. But it is hard in a competition gym to really structure those classes because we don't have like enough members to really make those dedicated beginner classes. Like they you know, you're gonna have like white belts to brown belts at all classes. And we're lucky we have like a lot of brown belts, we have a lot of purple belts, we have like, you know, we have a lot of those people on the higher skill set. We also have people on the lower skill set. So we have to make the classes kind of have something for everybody, which I know does take away from the beginners learning. I have never forgotten or like lost appreciation for how hard jiu-jitsu is to start, especially as a woman. Like I actually was like trying to clean up my old, like I don't have any uncomfortability with the sport anymore, and I actually thought that I never did, and then I was clearing out my old inboxes and I went back to the beginning of my inbox like cycle, and there was an email to like one of the female coaches at my first gym expressing all this discomfort, being like, what do you do about like your like chest area when you're rolling, like, and just kind of it was me just kind of expressing all these like things of just being, and like because there was no other girls at my gym that trained, and she was at it in a different city, but she's who kind of recruited me. So and it was just interesting seeing this email being like, what do you wear? Like, I'm just get so nervous. And it was just kind of being like, oh man, I didn't even like, I don't even remember feeling that, you know, like I don't even remember those feelings or those thoughts. So I've never like lost appreciation for what a steep learning curve jiu-jitsu is. Like kickboxing is pretty easy. You can come as a beginner and with no skill set and no fitness and still get something out of a class, still leave having fun and stuff. Where jiu-jitsu, you kind of have to put in like a few months of not having any fun at all until you start kind of like getting to reap some of those benefits. So, yeah, like we've definitely had some girls cross over. Eventually, I would love to do like a women's class once a month or something like that. We're starting to grow the women. Like we have now, I think 3 or 4 girls that train at my gym, whereas before it was just me. And then there's a couple more from the kickboxing that start. Then there's a few girls from other gyms that are dropping in now more because like the girls' presence is growing. So it's not something that happens overnight, obviously. And yeah, and like I was saying, in a sport like this, it's you have to let people do it at their own comfort level because it's like, but it's always interesting too. Like there's one girl from my kickboxing, her name's Taylor. If she happens to be watching this, and like I remember it was her first or second class, and I'm like, I guess we actually have like probably about 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 girls training in the jiu-jitsu program now. I'm thinking about more names that kind of come every now and then, but it was one of her first classes, and so at that point, it was on that specific class, there was a few girls trying it out for the first time. So I was kind of rolling with them one at a time to like let them have access with training with the girl. And I remember I went to go, Taylor had trained with one of the other girls, and then I went to go get her. And I guess she didn't see me calling her over, and she just marched right past me, called out like the biggest guy in the gym, and was just like, let's go. And I was just like, that was so funny. Like, but
Proud
so
moment.
yeah, everybody's at their different levels and stuff. But yeah, so far it has been nice to see that growth, have that girl presence in the gym. And I think the guys like having that too, like not even as like a gender thing, but I think it's validating to see so many new faces come in and fall in love with the sport that you're in love with. Um, so I think that having like a healthy dose of women and men at any gym just adds to the health and the growth of and the community of any gym. So I think it's been pretty cool to see how our gym's growing over the last year.
Awesome.
I like when you had said that, when you went and you traveled in different gyms that you went to, and Jesse, your partner, was, call out anybody to train with. And we do kind of have that reservation as women to like, oh, like, do you mind? But it's so important that it has that openness of women can just grab anyone, because otherwise I find like you get stuck where, girls are always going with girls, and it kind of prevents the progression for women to advance. Like if your highest female is always being put with the brand new female every single class, they're not getting those roles in and those harder roles in with higher levels. And it's a little bit of a frustrating position to be in if you're always, I know that was one of the conversations I had with one of my coaches, is he was, I was like, certain days I'll designate for, I want women to feel comfortable to come and ask me for roles and things like that. But I'm also looking to advance in my progression. So I don't always want to have to be, the person that's, paired up with the brand new person. That's what I love
about like women specific training, is because that's kind of where you can find those specific avenues for that. Like as a competitor myself, like I have to sometimes be selfish with my training, and I've had to tell people before, like who are maybe injured or looking for a soft role, like, sorry, like today's just not the day. I'm in competition mode. Like I said, there's certain nights that are my hard training nights. So, and if I'm close to a competition, I'm just not really willing to sacrifice those on because not only are you trying to get the hard rolls, and you're also trying to get that cardio built up. Because like I won't really take breaks in between my rounds either. Like I'll finish with one, grab the next person. So like I'm trying to get that hour straight of rolling, of keeping my heart rate at a certain level, right? So it's and it's not even about necessarily a girl. Like it's like I've had people who have said they're injured or have a knee injury or like stuff like that, and it's just not the time. But I've seen some girls talk about how like they don't believe in women's only classes because they don't think that like women should be segregated, like they're part of the group. But like I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think that the women's only training allows that opportunity for girls to overcome those initial discomforts, and like you're saying, it's a specific environment where we're kind of all coming together for that purpose of community. So like when I go to a women's event, I'm like for sure hoping to get some good rounds in with some of the higher other female belts, but I'm also going there knowing that I'm going to be nurturing some of the like lower belts and stuff, and it's a specific environment where where we're kind of all on the same page, you know, like we kind of have that singular goal. We don't have our individual training goals that we're, you know, it's not just like a random Wednesday where somebody might have something going on, you know? So that's why I kind of like those women's only classes, because it's kind of where everybody's just kind of pitching in to help develop each other's skills at the same pace. Um, so yeah, eventually I would like to start like maybe a once a month women's jiu-jitsu like class at my gym or something like that. I just have too much on the go right now, but that is kind of my eventual thing, because I think you have a really valid point, Katie, about the um when you kind of just get lumped into that, like that leader role of other women, because you can be a leader, I think, without being their partner. And I think sometimes like, as weird as it sounds in the moment, saying no to those roles and you know, putting them with other people, I think that is kind of being a leader in a different way of showing that, like, even if you're not comfortable for this right now, this is a possibility. Like, you don't have to be limiting yourselves to going with similar sized partners, or you're able to fight bigger, stronger people, still have technical wins, you know, stuff like that. So it is a difficult like line to cross, but I'm the same way, where I will, if I think there's like a new girl, you know, sometimes if I like, will try to at least welcome them, be their partner sometimes, but like I definitely don't agree with like just because people are women have to be paired up.
Yeah, I think it just ends up, the person that is trying to advance ends up sacrificing their progress just because they're always doing that. And also, I think women need to know that they're there. They're entitled to be there and have access to other training partners. It doesn't, you know, you're not stunting the guys from having opportunities with other, you know, like I think the more you're kind of forcing that status of taking up and owning that space, like we have every much right to be there as the guys do. So don't feel like
you don't like reinforce that you're a different type of training partner than the men, you know,
exactly.
Like luckily I've never really came across that too much. Like I've never really had much, like if anything, I know that there's some guys who don't like rolling with me because of how mean I am when I roll. Like, but like I've never really had like even just from like young belts, I've always been lucky to have a few good guys at the gym who have always been good about like one of my training partners from my last gym in Kelowna, Scott, like to this day, and I still see him do it. Like he's so good at um like when he sees new people, guys or girls, it doesn't really matter, but he's especially good for the girls. He's always just good about making like there's never going to be a girl sitting at the sideline looking for a partner. You know what I mean? He'll always make sure he goes and rolls with them, partners up with them. So like he did that with me when I started, and it's something I've noticed him continue to do as like, you know, newer people have came in and stuff like that. And I think it's like really important for men to know how much that means to women, to not only be given that opportunity to have a high level training partner, but just that value of you're not being like picked last, you know, like my partner Jesse, I haven't seen him in this regard, but like I've heard people say the same thing about him, that like he's really good at like just grabbing beginners and just kind of showing them the ropes, having fun with them, and like yeah, I think I think it's a really important way that men can like be allies to women in the sport, is just by just grabbing one of them and just treating them like anybody else, and just kind of yeah, like just making sure that they know that they're like have the same value as anybody else in that gym.
I love that.
I can speak from the earlier side where you two are more experienced, and I'm on the newer end of the journey. That, you know, just at my club at Westside MXT, I'm so grateful that, you know, Mike Meehan really fosters that community environment, especially with the men, because I started in Katie's women's only classes, you know, rolling with women, then obviously branching out to the co-ed and being there and actually having men come over and be like, hey, you want to roll this round? Or, you know, and then the communication of, you want to roll hard? Do you want to just like practice some things, stuff like that? So depending on how I'm feeling that day, and they've just all been super supportive. So I don't feel like, oh yeah, I'm the female that just has to stick in the corner and wait for another female to be there to get in a good session. So I do think that the men, like, and I think Alex McKinnon, another one at Quantum, same thing. He's very much like promoting like the supportive group environment, and everyone who comes in here, male or female, excuse me, you know, we're here for different things.
And you see that in the numbers. Like I've never even trained at Quantum, but you can look at a gym picture of like, like a student group picture, and you can tell by the population of a gym what kind of coach that is, because I've trained long enough to know that like you don't get women, like a high population of women in your gym without intentionally doing something to attract them. Or keep them, I should say. Retain them is more, I think that retention is more important than the attraction of them. But and you can do that through women's classes and having high level women, but like I don't think he ever had that. Like I know that they have women's classes now, but like he was the coach there, and he still managed to bring a lot of women into that gym. They seem like they have a huge women's community there. And like I've heard people say that like the amount of women in your gym is a direct correlation to what the health of your gym is, like just the respect, like all those things are just an indicator of that. And I'm not going to say that that's true or not, but I just think it's an interesting point to think of, because you just have to wonder what is keeping them in some cases or what's not keeping them in other cases.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and if you have a big enough population, like Moncton is obviously there's a huge population there. So proximity wise, everyone, there's lots of women around to get to that club, versus maybe in some of our smaller communities, it's like access, right? So that could be obviously one of the bigger factors as to why the women aren't there. But yeah, it's cool to see that, those big numbers, especially like, Melissa's gym, Synergy, same thing. Like she's got a great group of women in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That like picture they just posted of like the group of them, I literally just like messaged right away. I'm just like, I would kill for this many girls, because like we've had classes like or like we have our 10-round Tuesdays at our gym, so that usually attracts a bunch of people from other gyms. So there's probably been a day on the gym where there's like 5 or 6 girls on a jiu-jitsu mat, but that's not a regular thing. That's like a one-off, so but it is growing though. So I like a year ago there wouldn't have even been 2 on the mats, so um yeah, it's pretty cool to see. Melissa's amazing. I couldn't imagine. I try to think about what it would be like to have like a woman black belt coach when you're starting jiu-jitsu, and I literally can't even like wrap my head around what that would be like, like I think you get to have a pretty important like role in people's life. Like there was a black belt girl, or I guess she was brown belt when I started, but like I'm not even trying to speak negatively of her, but she wasn't somebody who fostered any, like she like I never rolled with her once. Like like I just it wasn't there. She had her own thing going on. She was a competitor. You didn't really get access to her, and so I just couldn't imagine what it would be like just to have somebody like high level like that you can just go like hang out with, ask questions, roll with after class. Like I think Melissa was actually one of the first WTF event I went to. I rolled with Courtney and Melissa that day, but that was my first time ever rolling with a female black belt.
Oh wow. And it is pretty cool. I mean, I rolled with her at one of the events at in Moncton, and it was like I was super nervous, but she was awesome.
Yeah. I'm just in awe of like some of the. I remember she taught at Women That Fight at MXT on not Bentley, it was on Westmoreland Road, and just her techniques and things like that. It was like really cool to see.
Yeah, it's really neat when you can relate. And the same thing with the like John Kelly.
Yeah,
I know
I'm honestly really jealous I can't be there.
But next one, I mean, you've got lots of plans for the future to obviously for there to be more hosting. So there's numerous, which I think is really awesome. So, and then our goal is to hopefully travel. So
yeah.
We know you put a lot of work in behind the scenes to get these events going.
I'm gonna do a Cape Breton one eventually and see who comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. Awesome. We will definitely.
Yeah, it's been nice, and everybody is super collaborative on them.
That's good.
Yes, because
you'll definitely what? Sorry?
Yeah,
we'll definitely travel to try and come up to visit for one of those events
on live TV so that there's all these witnesses.
Yeah. So then if it doesn't show up in the feed.
You heard it here first, folks. They're coming to Cape Breton.
Yeah.
I've never been, so it'll be a whole experience.
I'll be replaying this clip on the page.
Nice. I love it.
I have been to Cape Breton.
It is pretty nice up here. If you come with the nice weather.
Yes. Well, I just look at your stories every day. I'm like, these are just like the beautiful scenic photos you take. I'm like, my goodness, you could be selling those prints.
Um,
Yeah, I always get compliments on my pictures, but I just literally snap at what's in front of me. I don't do any work behind them.
That's awesome to have that just to like look at each day before your training. So what does the future hold for you? I know you like
I try.
you're
Um, so I really want to go kind of my first professional fight was last year with Medusa. So I really want to kind of keep chasing down the professional opportunities. I'm really hoping to be like a ranked grappler at some point. Medusa is happening again this December, so I'm going to try and get onto that. But my next booked thing is I have signed the contract, so I'm finally having my next MMA fight on the September card with FLA. So I'm very, very
nice.
excited about that. I fought like 2 Aprils ago, and I've been waiting for a fight ever since. And there's just been, with the Kumites, those cancel me out of some opportunities. I've had some girls pull out, so I finally get to have my next fight. So I'm super excited to finally get to fight MMA again. And so far, it really feels like a lot of the skills that I've been working on are kind of coming together for that. I was actually supposed to be fighting Helena Kravar in a cage next month, but that I just got notified yesterday that fell through. So that is not happening. But so that was kind of going to be like my next thing to tide me over until my fight. So as of now, I don't have anything booked until the MMA fight, but I'm hoping one little grappling thing comes up before then. But then after the MMA fight, I'm going to really just try to double down on looking for some more professional opportunities. I'll probably be getting my black belt in the next like year or so. Um, so yeah, just kind of keep trying to make my name in the sport and see where it takes me.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Who is it that you'll be challenging in FLA?
Nobody from our circuit. I can't like I've seen her name on paper, but it's not like I don't remember it now. I think she's from like maybe Ontario or something like that. So it's not anybody from like our circuit or anything that you'd like. It wasn't a name I'm familiar with, but um, yeah, I'm not sure of the name off the top of my head. I saw it when I signed my contract, but I haven't
We've been seeing a
haven't done
lot
any like
more
sleuthing
people
yet.
from Ontario making their way to Atlantic Canada for competitions. So, do you think that's kind of a sign that we're getting a little bit bigger and a little bit more of a
Yeah.
yeah?
Oh yeah, like I think I've had the experience of living in other places. So like what Fight League Atlantic does in the community here is I think that like maybe people like they've been doing it for so long and there's such a strong community out here that I think maybe people think that that's how it is everywhere, like because it just that's what the normal is for Atlantic Canada, but it's very, very much not the case. Like not only is there not that many high level events happening, but the ones that do happen are usually pretty like I don't want to say like clicky, but like there's a much harder vetting process to get to them, and they usually will work with certain gyms, whereas FLA really, from my opinion at least, they seem to really prioritize trying to bring up and comers up. Like you don't necessarily have to have a huge resume to earn a spot on one of their shows. Like they're willing to give people opportunities and give people chances and stuff. Um, they give you all this like exposure and footage and experience under big lights and stuff like that to be able to use those as stepping stones to other opportunities and stuff. So I think that FLA is one of the few. I'm trying to think of a comparable organization in Canada that does anything like that. I can't think of anything else in Canada that operates anything on the level that FLA does. I know BFL is pretty big with MMA, but they don't really offer grappling stuff. And BFL, that used to be the organization that I was with out in BC. They're pretty hard to get into because they're pretty high level again. So it makes sense that people would travel to come out here to do that stuff. Like I've traveled to lots of places in the States for similar opportunities because that's where you have to go to get them, right? So we're pretty fortunate and pretty blessed as to what FLA builds in our community. And I think we're going to, as they can keep growing and getting more of a name for themselves, I think we're going to continue seeing more people travel from other parts of the country and the States to come compete with us.
Love it.
When you get ready for a fight, do you normally have like a game plan or certain things? I know in the past you've mentioned that you were working your wrestling or certain techniques that you were looking into. Do you do that for every competition that you go into, or What do you normally do to prepare?
Yeah, game plan is, I'd say, like, even if you don't want to compete, if you want to do well in roles with people, like just in the gym, I think creating a game plan is one of the biggest like indicators of success, and probably one of the biggest things that started making me more successful and complete grappler. And until you start working with a game plan, I don't think you really realize how much you're lacking without one. When you don't have a game plan, you're you're honestly just are kind of hoping for the best in every situation. You don't like, you're, anything can happen, but when you have a game plan, even if you're getting like lost in the sauce and things get crazy in the fight, like with me, my game plan is usually like wrestle, like mount, isolate the arms, and then either take a like some kind of arm isolation submission or go to the back to submit like that. And that's my game plan. So no matter where I end up in a scramble, that's that well grooved path I'm trying to find my way back into, that little rut that I'm trying to find my way back into. So I'm not looking for like any submission that comes up. If something comes up, sure, I'll capitalize on that. But a game plan keeps you very focused, even if you're starting to think in like the visualization kind of way. Like if you've seen yourself or practiced a singular route so many times, your body and your muscle memory is going to find your way back to that end goal so many times. um I preach it so much to like all my students, my teammates. It's all I talk about is like game plan before, like if you're going into a match and you like so it's like, what are you going to do first? Are you waiting for them to move? If you're ever waiting for your opponent's actions and you're reacting off their movements, you're now like a step, two steps behind. It has to be you initiating contact. It has to be you initiating your game plan. You want to have them defending your game plan, not you defending their game plan. So I'll usually know like what takedown I'm going to go for, what takedown I'm going to go off of that. And like, of course, like nothing goes to plan all the time. It's not that smooth, but you need to know where your goals are so that you'll end up on those same plans. Like I'm sure when if you've ever watched me compete, I don't have the most exciting matches, but I have a very similar game plan that I use for all of them because it's a successful game plan and it works well. And then I also just always recommend and practice like not rushing things and just trying to work on tiring my opponent out before I'm advancing too far into my game plan. You always have that time just to like slow down and cook them and wear them down a bit before you kind of keep advancing.
I always enjoy watching your matches. I think they're pretty exciting.
Yeah.
When you're creating your strategy, do you start from what you want as a submission and work backwards? Or do you start from what your takedown is going to be into what position you want and then go towards your submissions? Like which direction do you normally go if you have a specific one?
So I think it matters a bit on like your skill set. So like most of us as grapplers, wrestling is not going to be our strength. If wrestling, like I would say start at your strength, and that's what I tell people. Like look, so, and because it's very common for people to like when I'm saying for a game plan, and they're saying like, well, I don't have a game plan. I don't know that much about jiu-jitsu. I don't know where I should end up. I don't know, like I don't have a lot of control over where my matches go, and those are all very like valid points, but so I think the first thing is just identify like where do you end up a lot. And it doesn't even have to be a good or bad position, but like where do you end up a lot? Where like what do you find is your most successful submission? What do you find, doesn't even have to be your favorite one, but like what submission do you find that you hit the most? Like so, so for me, like it was when this whole game plan started back in the day, like the arm triangle was probably my most hit submission. Um, so that was what I kind of formulated around. And so like for my bottom game, like I end up in bottom half guard a lot. So like you find the positions that you end up a lot in, and then because whether or not you realize it, that's kind of an indicator of your strength of where you're ending up, even whether or not it feels like a strength or whatever. But if you're ending up in the same position a lot, that's a good indicator of where your strength is. So you just kind of build that game plan around that. And then as you start to build the game plan around that, you'll come into different troubleshooting. So say you end up in like a closed guard, for example, you always end up in closed guard. That's just where you find you always end up. You don't have anything to do from there. You don't feel like you have strengths from there, but you end up in closed guard. Okay, well then let's start to build a plan from there. Okay, so like you can do a guard pull because now you're going to end up into the position that you're strongest from right away. Then you can start working on like posture breaking and then once you're working on the posture breaking, okay, does the arm bar come up more? Does a triangle come up more? And then from there you can kind of play around with it. it does take, like, you can always just create a game plan in your head and try to go for it. But if you have the time working it out in the gym and trying to troubleshoot what's coming up when you're trying to do your game plan, what's the common thing that they're doing that's stopping that, so then you can kind of work around that too. Um, then if you are a great wrestler, because obviously, at least for me, like my top game is better than my bottom game. But like so I always say, like, if you're able to wrestle and end up on top, perfect, then do that. But some people have better guards than they have passing, right? So then create your game plan so that it plays into your strengths, not your weaknesses.
I think that's great advice, to work from your strengths and then troubleshoot. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well,
I'm looking forward to seeing you fight again. I know it's only 2 months for you has been a long time, but everyone's eager to see what you've got coming up. I'm pumped.
absolutely.
We'll miss you at the WTF.
Yes, we're definitely going to miss you there, because it was, well, last year
I'll miss you guys too.
around this time last year, right? Or it was September, right? September
so.
was the one in PEI.
Yeah.
Yeah, where we first got to meet you.
And thank you to you guys for sponsoring this event.
Oh.
Yeah, your podcast is who sponsors the refreshments and everything for the event. So it's awesome to have all the support of Rogue and Standalone as well. So I know that the donations aren't what makes these events, but I just think it really adds something special to them. And I think it also is cool for members, and it's even cool for me just to see that community support, because I think it just helps reinstate the value of these communities, and it helps to see that, like, there's communities and other companies and individuals who all also see that value. Like FLA is actually also a huge contributor. Every time we post an event, they message me instantly, what can we do, what can we do?
Nice.
They're always trying to build up the women in the sport, and like Babs emailed me right away, like everybody who seeks us out to support without even us having to seek them out. I think it's just really cool, and it's validating, and it's inspiring, and it just kind of really helps like validate your spot in the sport, and it's just really appreciated.
Well, awesome. we love your contribution. We love watching you as an individual, making your way in the world of MMA, and but also being such a huge advocate for women in the sport. I think it's absolutely amazing, and we really appreciate all the work that you put in.
And we don't want to leave people hanging. Can you introduce your fur babies? Oh. I know if I was watching this, I'd want to see your dogs.
Yes, I can. So this is Callie. So this is my little girl dog, and then I don't know if you can see him. Ralphie's out there on the. Can you see him in the driveway?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, being a guard dog.
But yeah, Ralphie's on the driveway.
Awesome.
Does this camera turn around? Yeah. So this is my house. That's Ralphie's, and this is all the ocean here.
Oh, beautiful view. I see your posts all the time.
Where I just
love it.
Sit and think about things.
Nice.
It's a good view.
So it's funny. I had these dreams of building this like huge, beautiful porch, and then all I did was just get this nice couch, and that's all I needed, because now that I have this couch here, I just sit out here all the time.
I love that.
Listen, sometimes simple is best.
Salt water is so healing.
Yes.
Good for the soul.
Oh,
sweet.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate your time, and we're definitely going to have you back, because we're following you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. It's always a pleasure to pick your brain. I love all of the input that you give. Yeah, it's very good.
I know when we get off this, I'll be like, oh, I wanted to ask her this and I wanted to ask her that. So we'll definitely have you back again. So I'll make a list, and then we can dive into it again.
Absolutely. And like anytime to anybody who sometimes like I do get a lot of women who message me asking me questions, and I always just try to reiterate to anybody that like I don't ever mind answering questions. I had to really struggle to learn a lot of the things I learned through like trial and error. I didn't really have a lot of guidance, especially not like any woman guidance. And I remember as a like white belt and early blue belt, just being like, I wonder what it'd be like just to have somebody you could just ask any question to. And like recently I had a question about something that Brianna St. Marie did in a tournament, and I was talking to my friend about it, and he's like, why don't you just message her and ask her? And I did, and she did get back to me. And so I just think I just want everyone to know that like I'm always open to answering questions like that. If I can get people to where I am faster than it took me, I would be so stoked to do that.
Love that.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Well, thank you very much for your time today.
And enjoy your training.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
good luck
thanks
with
for
the knee
having me.
rehab.
Yeah, it was so awesome to see you girls. I'll see you guys soon.
Yes,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Thank
All
you.
right. Bye.
See you guys later.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you, Sarah, so much. Again, we really appreciate you being on the show. We're excited to get you back. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Jordan, for being our fantastic videographer, the people behind the scenes, right? It takes a whole community for us to do what we do, and we're very grateful for it. And hope you all have a fantastic day. And
Catch you on the next roll.